In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where the gray team from my WICSO is real. So, I'm just realizing how small it is, actually. Compared to India, I thought it took up, like, a lot more of India. I thought, like, it went up, like, up to, like, here-ish on India's. But I was wrong. But anyways, the gray team has showed up in real life, and I was originally going to do this with the, lime team. This is an old map from before episode 30, by the way, but I don't think they really expand that much, as they weren't really, that interested in expanding. The Great Team, while not the most interested country in the world on expanding, they were a lot more interested than the Lime Team, so... Anyways, the first place they're going to be expanding is over here. Where? Wait. I'm getting a call, 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Anyways, sorry about that, I got a call. Anyways, the first place they'll be expanding into is going to be the rest of Tanzania. Let me get a different shade of blue. That looks too much like, you know what, let's just use the normal shade. That also looks too much like the water. Okay, we're just going to use this shade. And I called the wrong country. Okay, they're going to be invading into Tanzania. Anyways, so the gray team will send their troops in. There, start by sending them in over here and connecting up to this lake here. They will then send them in from everywhere on the border. As they go up and connect over to this lake, they'll eventually connect up to this lake as well, and over here they'll push over to Rwanda and Burundi, I think is the name of the other one. But they will continue to invade into Tanzania until they have taken over the entire thing, in which they will fully annex Tanzania. Which, there was a country here in my WICSO by this lake that they probably would have invaded into if not for what happened in episode 30. If you're not seeing episode 30, go watch it. But anyways, after that, they will go right into Rwanda and Burundi, so they just take the troops out here and they just walk into these, kill some people in them, and take it for themselves. As we see that they are actually just a massive hypocrite, and that they... I'm gonna stop speaking before I spoil too much more. But anyways, after taking that, we're gonna be going over to another area in the world, and that is over to Singapore and Malaysia, in which the grey team will invade into Singapore, and shortly after go right into Malaysia. as they go over to this part and take all of it. And they will let Malaysia live over here, but they will be taking this part of it here. So with that, I wish I could get rid of this circle thing, but it's going to be kind of hard, so just ignore it there. I hate this map and how it has circles to represent those small countries. Like, just put the borders on the map. Anyways, they now have this part of Malaysia, which is good to own as a lot of trade goes through here. And if it wasn't for the fact that the country here in WICSO was one of the strongest countries, they probably would have invaded and taken this part. But anyways, continuing on, we are going to see them move back over to Africa, where they have more that they want to invade, that being Kenya. What did Kenya do? Absolutely nothing, but the Grey Team wants land. They just got occupied with other things in WICSO that made them have to deal with that. So they'll start walking in here. And their troops will eventually push up and cut the country in half. With that, this half will fall first because it just does, and then this half. And Kenya will be for you next. Anyways, over here we have Somalia, and we also have Djibouti and Eritrea, and they're one of the Great Team's allies is here. Well, I say allies, they're not in their alliance, but they're like friendly with the country that's here. So, what does the Great Team do? Well, they realize that that country's not there, so they decide to go in and make it there. So they will declare war on all three of these countries. Actually, four, as they also declare war on Ethiopia. And they'll start sending in troops. Somalia will go pretty easy as its government is terrible and it's a failed state, so. And then, as they're invading, we see Somaliland declare independence. Is it like this or like this? I don't know. I'm just gonna give it either way. It's getting its independence. Or it will declare its independence. It will break away. With this, the Grey Team will push up and meet up with it. And will help it, and will make a deal they can live if it helps them invade into Djibouti and Eritrea, so they will do so as they push into Djibouti and take it, and also Eritrea. Meanwhile, the Grey Team will continue to push into Ethiopia, and will eventually take all of that, making this front line here. And they will continue to push into Ethiopia. Meanwhile, in Eritrea, Somaliland, which is being supplied by the Grey Team, will continue to push in. They'll also push into parts of Ethiopia. Meanwhile, the Grey Team will send more troops in to take care of the rest. And anyways, in the peace treaty, Somaliland will get their independence, but they'll also be getting a bit more land, as they will be getting... They'll be getting all of Djibouti, and a bit of Ethiopia and Eritrea. As for the grey team, they will also be taking in some land as they take all of this and become a lot bigger. Meanwhile, Ethiopia and Eritrea will still exist. However, they are very weak. And we're going to see what is left of Ethiopia and Eritrea actually just unite, as it'll be easier to function if they unite than if they were separate with how weak they were after that war. But the grey team has expanded their colony in Africa a lot after that, so anyways, they will be going back over here now, as they have another plan to invade a country, and the country that they will be invading next is Thailand. So the grey team will send its troops in, and will start taking land pretty easily. As they push up to here, they will then continue push in, as they take all of this, taking all of the coast. And soon after, they will cut the country in half like this, following which they will send massive invasions into both halves and take the entire country. In the treaty, the grey team will take over these lands here, and will turn the rest into a puppet. Why that change? No, you won't change. You're still part of it. You're not a puppet state, anyways. They turn the rest of it into a puppet state. And continuing on, they will not waste much time, as they then proceed to send their armies right into Burma. So they will push into Burma and take this part here before pushing up and going over into here, taking this land. They will also invade from their puppet state as they go into this area here. And soon after, they will meet up with Bangladesh. And then India decides to join this war. Why? I don't know, they just do. So India starts pushing into Burma, or Myanmar. And the grey team is not happy about this. Eventually, they will meet up here. Now, time for a peace treaty. In the peace treaty, India will get this part here. The grey team will take this part here, and as for the rest of it, they will give it over to the puppet state, which is will make some terrible borders. Yeah, the grey team decides that in their anger at India, they just decide to make some actually just terrible borders over here. Anyways, the grey team is now looking something like this. And the next country they're going to be going after is actually going to be Indonesia, as they want this island here from them, so they declare war on Indonesia. So anyways, the grey team will send their troops into Indonesia. As they push along here, Indonesia will push back a bit, but not too much, as shortly after the grey team just sends more troops. They'll take these islands over here, and we'll continue to push down on this island until they get to here. Well, Indonesia will manage to stalemate them for a little bit before pushing back up against them. Then there's another stalemate, which goes on for about 3 months before the grey team manages to push through. The grey team will then take this entire island and then take these 2 islands here. With this, they will start to plan an invasion of Java, but before then, Indonesia will surrender and agree to give them this island here. Along with that, they'll also be taking some of these surrounding islands, so now the grey team is looking like this. And they have 2 more countries that they want to go after. The first one will be Bangladesh. And then they also declare war on India. Now, they will start to send troops into here, invade into Bangladesh and India. However, India will then start to push back, and will start to push in over here. As they push down along here, and they push into the grey team. They'll also push into the grey team over here, also pushing into the also pushing into the puppet state. In Bangladesh, the grey team will continue to expand. However, then Bangladesh will start pushing back, and the Bangladesh and Indians will push over here, hiding a bunch of the Grey Team's troops off over here, in which they will try to hold out, waiting to get saved by the Grey Team's navy, but the Grey Team's navy is not coming, as India has a bunch of ships located here to make sure that doesn't happen. And over time, this will continue to get pushed until at the end of the war, actually, they all die. But as that happens, India will continue to invade into the Grey Team's puppets. And as they invade into the Grey Team and their puppet, we see this Eritrea, Ethiopia country join, along with some other African nations that were worried about being invaded. And if that wasn't bad enough, the Grey Team has just some of the Grey Team's navy just went over to Portugal, blew up some of their ships, claimed that they thought those ships were India's, but now Portugal's in this war. If you've seen episode 30, you'll understand that. You'll understand that joke. However, India is continuing to push in. Meanwhile, over here, their colony was kind of abandoned as the military was pulled back to deal with that, and we'll see more African countries join this. In fact, just all of Africa decides to join as they don't like the Grey Team. And actually the entire world joins, just because why not? With this, the Grey Team will completely die over here. They will also die over here. They will then die over here, and then die here. However, they will be able to survive on Sri Lanka, which is where the capital is, as the world is unable to make a landing here, and there will never be an official end to this, but the world will decide to just let them live as Sri Lanka, and just claim this as a victory. Sri Lanka will never agree to, or the Grey Team will never agree to the peace treaty, but the world doesn't care, as their military is basically destroyed and all they have left is what's defending them. So anyways, that was What If the Grey Team Existed in Real Life. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.